The German military has adopted a seemingly invincible code-making machine. The Enigma turns a message into unintelligible gibberish, letter by letter. When the message is sent in Morse code, all an enemy would see is a meaningless string of letters. But when the German operator at the receiving end types the coded letters back into his Enigma machine, the real message appears. In this way, vital war plans remain totally secret. The High Command never wavers from its belief in the security of Enigma. They are so confident that they deploy the Enigma throughout the German war machine. They never imagined what was about to happen at Bletchley Park. This is the machine the German High Command believed would protect their secrets. This is the Enigma.
The complexity is enormous. I mean, if I sent just one message on an Enigma machine today, it would still take a super Cray computer, the fastest in the world, a year to go through searching for that one message without supporting evidence as to what that message might have been.
Long before the war began, the airwaves were full of coded messages as Hitler prepared.
Still bleeding. While I was decoding, I was writing out in modern German, their new code book. And that did bring the war very close.
The Germans were supremely confident in the Enigma. Its basic principle was simple, but it could scramble messages in millions of different ways. Pressing one typewriter key would light up a totally different letter. An electrical current was sent from the keys to the letters through a series of rotors. Each time a key was pressed, a rotor would turn, altering the wiring and so changing the letter that was produced.
The total number of ways in which the Enigma machine can be configured for any particular message is 150 million. So it was an enormous complexity, which was why the Germans thought it was completely safe.
The Enigma was first developed as a commercial encryption device in the 1920s and patented in London. German banks and railways were among its first customers. But the German military was quick to see its potential. Each day, German operators in the field received a new set of instructions from base on how to set up the Enigma. They had to make 3 adjustments so that both the senders and receivers' machines would match. First, which rotors to put into the machine and in what order.
The rotors contained one of the central secrets of the Enigma machine, which was the cross-wiring inside the wheels. The whole of this maze of wiring inside changed every time a letter was entered, and that's what gave the Enigma machine its vast complexity.
The second step was to change the wiring of each rotor by adjusting the ring of letters around the rim. 26 combinations on each wheel. The third step was the plug board. Using his secret instructions for the day, the operator could wire up each typewriter key to a totally different letter.
This is what the Germans thought was the killer cryptographically. This plug board enabled you to transpose letters completely, a pair of letters. Now, because there are 26 sockets on the front of the Enigma machine, you can plug these pairs of letters together in an absolutely astronomical number of combinations. About 1.5 million combinations that you can use on the front.
Once the machine was set up, the message was encoded letter by letter. These letters were then sent by Morse code to the receiver at the other end. The Germans were never shaken in their belief in Enigma's invincibility. At first, all the codebreakers had were meaningless groups of coded letters and endless patience. And in the first months of the war, the new recruits were getting nowhere.
At the beginning of the war, there was a great difficulty because although we had intercepts which we knew were enciphered using the Enigma machine, we didn't know enough detail about the machine to be able to even begin to find any method of breaking it. Unless you've got the exact key, you just cannot get anywhere with it at all. And this is a major difference from any code systems prior to that the Enigma machine, there's no sense of nearness. You're not nearly at a solution. You've either got the solution or you haven't got the solution.
The search for a solution began long before the war. Starting in 1931 and continuing for 7 years, a hard-up German army clerk secretly obtained more than 300 documents, including the instructions and settings for the Enigma machines. He sold them to the French Secret Service. But their cryptographers showed little interest. Next, the stolen documents were offered to the British Secret Service. At this stage, GC and CS was skeptical that Enigma could be broken and politely declined the offer. Finally, the documents went to the Poles. With Germany breathing down their necks, their response was very different. A deal was struck. With the stolen documents in hand, 3 brilliant young Polish mathematicians, Zagowski, Rozecki, and Rejewski, set to work on the Enigma. The Poles soon realized that they had to figure out how the Germans had wired the Enigma's keyboard to the first rotor. Since any typewriter key could be wired to any letter on the rotor, the number of possible wiring orders was astronomical. But if the Poles could work this out, it would be a vital first step in breaking the Enigma.
Rejewski had a flash of inspiration, and he thought, what about if they'd been stupid enough to just use ABCD as the order round the rotor? And they had. All the multitude of millions and millions of ways in which they could have scrambled the connection from the keyboard to the entry point, and they'd just chosen A, B, C, D. And Marian Rejewski, in desperation, tried that. It worked, and suddenly he'd got the internal connections of the whole of the German forces machine.
But in 1939, on the eve of the invasion of Poland, the Germans added an extra choice of rotors to the Enigma, and the Poles could no longer read any of the messages. In desperation, they invited British and French officials to a secret meeting in a forest near Warsaw. They revealed how they had previously broken the Enigma. The British were astonished.
And Dilly Knox, he was one of the members of the team that went there. And the first thing he asked Rejewski was, what is this mapping from the keyboard to the entry rotor? And Rejewski said, ABCD. And Dilly Knox went, oh God, we never thought of that. It's too obvious. Why didn't we think of that?
Within weeks of that meeting, Poland was invaded and war broke out. The Polish cryptographers had given Bletchley Park their own replica of the Enigma machine, but the extra rotors the Germans had added meant that the code breakers were still in the dark. As the flow of German messages increased, at last they began to see a way of achieving the impossible.